Hello, this is Dr. Jane Galloway, and I'm so happy to be with you again on our journey through the gateways, the wisdom of 12-step spirituality. We're going through the gateways as process for accessing the wisdom path within the 12-step process, program, etc. I say process and program, etc., because I really am trying to make the distinction here for all of us between the process of getting sober in AA, which is its very own process and has to do with many of the layers of addiction, of alcoholism in particular. But the ism, or the part that is the soul sickness, which many people have, whether they formally are addicted to something or not, is what is addressed by the spiritual path of the 12 steps. And that's an ongoing, ever-evolving, deepening, widening path. I've come to really think about all of this as a process of soul retrieval. And certainly it was that in my case, but I see that this is what it's about for many, many people. I would say the majority of people who are working and living the 12 steps in some form with any degree of seriousness. It's about the soul's journey home. Living from one's true self as opposed to living from this compensatory self. Who do you want me to be? Who did my mother want me to be? Who did my friends think I should be? Who did Vogue magazine think I should be? Who did a director of a play I was doing think I should be? What everybody else wants us to be ends up being a compensatory self that has, in some cases, especially for people who need to use various substances and processes to sustain that, it needs to be sustained by addiction, is kind of a path that leads nowhere other than down, because you can't really pretend to your soul to be somebody you're not forever. And one of the great things about the 12-step program is that every utilization of it, and the meaning through AA, through Al-Anon, through OA, DA, all of the programs that have come to follow the initial AA program, there is such a great sense of humor about this whole work. And I'm not sure why we've been given the gift of humor, because many of us have endured and caused real tragedy in our lives, all of it pain-based. But somehow there's something about the way these steps are able to transform all of that pain that also brings with it a huge dose of not taking oneself too seriously. And that is a welcome relief. So the initial exposure I had to some of these ideas did come through AA. And one of the things it talks about is this process of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing with a vengeance. So in other words, we're being dishonest with ourselves. It's not that I'm sitting around thinking how I can hide my true self from you. I'm sitting around or living my life trying to figure out how to keep me from knowing who I am. And that's really rough. It's a rough way to live every day. And so the relief of some sort of substance like alcohol cannot be overstressed, because finally you kind of get this, thank God I can stop being whoever that person is. And then, because you're using a substance that's very unpredictable, who knows who you become then. So it's not a prescription for a long-term path of sanity. Let's put it that way. So the entire process of the steps is about returning home to our true self. Using the gateways, you can really get onto this path by going deeper through the different sections of the steps and understanding what each one of them represents. So the first 3 steps are the foundation. Those are clarity, awakening, and relationship. And we've gone through all of those. Steps 4 through 7 are clearing, cleansing, releasing. And 4 through 7 are a lot of work. They really are. 4 through 7 are the place where we really dig in and begin to do a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves, share that with God, ourselves, and another human being. Then we we become entirely ready first to have these defects removed, and then we humbly ask God to remove these defects of character. 4, 5, 6, 7 are kind of that's the kind of centerpiece of working these steps, and that is where the heavy lifting resides. The first part is acceptance and moving into the realization that one needs to do this reclamation and restoration process. But 4, 5, 6, 7 are a lot of work. And this week we're on step 9. So 8 and 9 are really kind of their own process. And they are about rectification. And then the final 3 steps are the daily walk. And so they're kind of a repetition as spiritual practice of all of the stuff we've already done. So we'll go through that later and probably in the next podcast. But today we're going to look at step 9, gateway 9, this idea of making amends to people we had harmed, except when to do so would injure them or others. That's a really important second point there. But I just want to recap a little bit to step 8, which we looked at last week. And that is made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. That becoming willing is no joke. That is a big deal. So the 8th step is a profound step. It requires action. Most of it really has already kind of been done through step 4 and 5. You kind of know who's going to be on your list of people you've harmed. Actually, usually the list is smaller. What we learn, smaller than the 4th step list had been. What we learned through doing the 4th step is that, in fact, we owe ourselves a lot of amends too. So that's a really fascinating process. I recommend that if you're interested in this transformational process, you really find somebody or a group and begin working on this depth process with people, because it's an amazing process. But anyway, so we make a list in step 8 of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So the interesting thing about this is that when we make this list, that's a whole step in itself. And then the becoming willing process is progressive. It's something that we, get engaged with and kind of figure out, okay, I'm ready. There's prayer involved with that. There's surrender, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're really at the threshold of this new life that's provided through these steps when we're ready to do step 9. So with each new level of the inward journey, we're becoming closer to a relationship of harmony with our Creator. Steps 8 and 9 are all about getting back into alignment, really, with God. In AA literature, the original literature that really breaks down the 12 steps, there is a great importance given to both steps 8 and 9. We stand at a threshold. The practicing of these 2 steps opens the door to the beginning of the end of isolation, and that is a big deal. Anybody who's really, there are people who are addicted to isolation, quite frankly, but addicted to overeating, to gambling, to so many things. So these 8 and 9 are really the beginning of the end of isolation. You here's how they work. I think this is kind of a good way to look at it. You probably have heard that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. This seems to definitely be the case with making amends, too. First of all, we decide who is and isn't on our amend list. We put a powerful intention into the universe, and then we kind of leave it alone, and we become willing. Now, some of these people we need to contact. We need to write a letter, make a phone call, send an email, say, I'd like to get together with you. I have a conversation I need to have with you. Anyway, so there's really no better example of this idea of as within, so without, how that works, than with the 9th step process. Remember, you've done the depth work in the 4th and 5th step on the reasons you've taken certain fear-based actions into your relationships, and your choice of a trusted other to share the 5th step with will make a big difference, of course. They'll ask questions and share their personal experiences, which opens so many doors and insights for you. And then the idea there is not only to make an amend, but to begin to understand ourselves well enough that we won't be likely to repeat the same behaviors, or not easily. So by the time you become ready to make the amend, the opportunity often presents itself for you to speak with the person in question. I have literally been walking down the sidewalk in New York City and walked into a person to whom I owed an amend, who I hadn't seen for 3 years or something. Honestly, it's kind of a crazy thing. Or had them pop up on my LinkedIn page asking to be, connected with me on LinkedIn. Some kind of way, some of these people have come forward. Anyway, however you decide to get together with them, when you do meet with them, remember you're in a process of inner transformation, and you're approaching them in order to let them know that you are truly sorry, but also to free yourself from carrying the burden any longer. It's both parts of that, okay? And then to amend means to change. So it means you're going to change your behavior. And part of this behavior of really betraying ourselves by not acting out of our true selves is part of what we let go with this. This is, challenging. People-pleasing is something that we've learned as children, and usually through a lifetime of people-pleasing, because we honestly believe in many cases that it's the only way to go. It's the only way people will like us. It's the only way we'll stay in the game. And so, we have to, we approach this thing with a seriousness of purpose. Some amends involve making financial restitution. Some involve a conversation. We can also right wrongs with people who are no longer in the physical by writing a letter. I've done that. I've had a conversation with my dad. I didn't owe him an amend, but I needed to have an intentional conversation with him, and I did that through a letter. The point is you're taking the time and setting the intention to right the wrongs. Okay, so that's what this whole step 9 is. And as you make the amends, you'll be surprised how much easier things become. First of all, it's an amazing process, because usually if you have thought it through and prayerfully entered this conversation, the conversation flows. There's no, it just seems like one of the hardest things in the world to get into. But if you just stay sincere and stay in touch with the truth inside yourself. Some are harder than others, and some people, don't want to accept, just sometimes the answer is no. But then remember, we are doing these amends for ourselves too, right? So remember, we're reaching the beginning of the end of isolation, and that's an amazing thing to know that we're part of the universe. We will know a new freedom and a new happiness. That's also directly from the literature. And we'll begin to understand the benefit of even our most painful experiences, because they can help another person. So I guess, I would encourage you to consider this process of making amends as something that is really a deep spiritual process, and also is kind of like an inner feng shui. It clears out things. I spent many, many years having a lot of questions about certain relationships in my life, not understanding them, not understanding why I was having this reaction from this person, or etc. And part of what practicing step 9 and then the 3 following steps, which are the daily maintenance steps. So step 10, it really follows on the heels of step 9. It says, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So we don't get this whole big backlog of resentments and anger and all kinds of stuff going. We just don't. So what I've started all this whole long run-on sentence type thing to get at is that when we begin to really make this a daily part of our lives, little by little, the road gets narrower. Things get clearer. We begin to understand better what's going on. Some of this is painful. Oh, some of it's very painful. It's painful to look at relationships and realize that sometimes someone who was supposed to love you couldn't. I work with a lot of people who come from families where they were not appreciated, they were not seen, they were not able to be loved in the way that they really deserved to be loved. And sometimes, I mean, we have. This is not an easy road, but it is a road toward ultimate freedom and spiritual awakening. So when I'm encouraging you to really travel the road, I've got to say, if you're still with me by step 9, you're somebody who's really seriously considering how this work can change your life and can change the quality of your relatedness with others. There's a great phrase in Al-Anon, which is, a related program for families of people with addiction, and it says, say what you mean and mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And it's a skill set. We have to learn that skill set to really be able to say what we mean what we say, but don't say it mean. So by the time we get to step 9, hopefully we're making an amend here, but we're not groveling. We are sharing insights we have into our own behavior, perhaps. I mean, the other person doesn't want to hear you go through a whole therapy session, but, most of this comes from relationships, right? Like people we've had some sort of relationship with that was meaningful enough to get tangled up in some kind of funny way. So at this point, it's really trying to right that relationship, to right that wrong. And this has to do with trying to be as clear as we can be, definitely as heartfelt as we can be, but also not groveling and, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I do these things, because the truth is we do know why we do these things. We've learned it through 4, 5, 6, 7, through those steps. And we've also learned that, if we had known better, we would have done better. And so some self-compassion comes into this process. So anyway, these steps are for people who are brave and desperate, or both, either or. I think both, really. Okay, so I just kind of want to go through this 4-step process I talked about before, and then I'm going to tell you the really exciting thing that comes after we complete step 9. They're called the promises, and I'm going to share those with you in a minute. But so this is rectification, gateways 8 and 9, steps 8 and 9. And then the next 3 steps are steps 10 through 12. and they are the daily walk. So this is what we do in a daily way. We continue to take personal inventory. We continue to ask God to reveal God's self in a deeper way to us through prayer and meditation. And then we share the message with others, having had a spiritual awakening. And so with some people, a spiritual awakening is, I think, in my case, I woke up and then the awakening has been continual. You can't dine out on an old spiritual awakening forever. You can be transformed, but the Bible says, be ye transformed through the renewal of your mind. And this is really a daily process. So these steps are an invaluable aid in that process, okay? So that will be that 4-step process. Let me go back to it, is about soul retrieval. Remember, that's what we started this with. This journey is about soul retrieval. And as we return back to who we actually are intended to be, there is great joy in kind of that homecoming to ourselves, and there's often loss involved in this. So I don't want to present this as though this is some, get out of jail quick free card. In order to do these steps, you have to be brave, and you also have to realize that there are certain relationships that are going to change in a dramatic way and may not end up looking how you would like them to look. Okay, there may be people in your family who you just can't be in the kind of close relatedness with that you had hoped. And these are hard things to face, but the whole point is, when we're on our right beam, when we're in right alignment with our higher power and with our higher calling, then we're really contributing to the flow of the universe. And that person is too, is free to not be bound up with some kind of funny tango with you. So anyway, that's what those are, the 4-step process of soul retrieval, your soul's journey home. This is deep stuff, and it's ongoing. There's joy involved with it. There's sorrow involved with it. And service is the key to being able to maintain this process. Over time, or even over an hour, we have to always be focused on the we, not the I. And that's what changes so much when we begin this process of spiritual awakening, utilizing the wisdom path of the 12 steps. We get into the we mentality. All indigenous wisdom is collective, is we-based, not I. And this individualistic idea of much of self-help and much of unfortunately, it's not really the essence of the teachings of New Thought, but it has become a lot of the public teaching. How you get yours, and forget everybody else. And so that isn't the 12-step path. It just isn't. It just isn't at all. So this is the we, and we enter the we in a profound way after we're willing to do steps 8 and 9. And making these amends is no easy thing, because it requires really this inner work, okay? So in the AA Big Book, which is a big blue book, and if you've never seen it, it's where all of this original stuff about the 12 steps is written, and about how that program was founded, etc. But in the Big Book, it says, after step 9, and after it talks about what goes on with step 9, it says, if we are painstaking about this stage of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. And then there are a bunch of promises. These are 11 things that we are promised. These aren't suggested things. These aren't things that might happen. These are things that definitely happen. And I can tell you they definitely happen. So, okay, just sit back and listen to this. You've done a lot of good, hard work of inner inner examining and of making amends to people. And so now, here we go. I'll read them by number. 1, we will know a new freedom and a new happiness. 2, we will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. 3, we will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. Wow, that was funny. That was kind of hard to get out. I'm going to say that again. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. 4, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. 5, that feeling of self-pity and uselessness will disappear. 6, we will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. 7, self-seeking will slip away. 8, our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. 9, fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. 10, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And 11, we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. That's the promises. Isn't that amazing? Whew. As the writing in the big book goes on, it says, are these extravagant promises? And then the book says, we think not, but I would have to say, yes, they are extravagant promises. They are amazing, and what a gift. They're a big payoff for all this hard work we do. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. And that's from the book, again, the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, pages 83 and 84. So at this point, honestly, in the book I talk about a ritual for this process, this step. And the ritual is a vision board, is to create some idea of how the life you would like to be living looks, feels, might be. But really, I think what I'm going to do is just, a lot of you know what a vision board is. It feels like we've shared some fairly profound stuff here, and I don't want to get into just an easy practicum. If you feel like doing a vision board, I recommend them. I always am working on one, so I usually have one going wherever I am, and I suggest you try it. I think it's great. But at this point, I think we're really into allowing the universe, allowing God, allowing whatever we call this amazing force that breathes us, that creates us, that created all the people to whom we made amends, allowing that force to really order our steps. So that's what we're doing with this. I'm going to tell you as we close what the basic gateway line is on this. The gateways are actually kind of a spine to support the working of this level of development. So the chakra is Sahasrara. The function is enlightenment, which I think is pretty interesting, don't you? Enlightenment at this point. We get a lot of stuff after being willing to make amends in this way. The location is our cerebral cortex. Sacred geometric shape is the upside-down violet crescent. The upside-down violet crescent. I hope I didn't say violent. I didn't mean it, but a violent violet. The color is cream. Musical note is B. Meridian is the central and governing meridian. The gland is the pineal gland. And again, that's interesting because that's at the third eye. And so there we are, right there at the third eye, which is the kind of that's the spiritual seeing, the gland that's associated with seeing deeply. And then Maslow's hierarchy level is that of integration. And the ritual, again, as I said, is a vision board. So this is about really getting in alignment in a major way through rectification, through the inner work, and now we're at the doorway to this amazing life, a new happiness and a new freedom. And I'm thinking of this song, one of my favorites. It's, order my steps in your word, dear Lord. Lead me, guide me every day. Send your anointing, Father, I pray. Order my steps in your word. It doesn't have to be Father. It can be Mother or Spirit, but this is really where we are. We're at this moment of having our steps ordered. So thank you for traveling with me to this very meaningful place. Good luck with your amends. You'll be amazed before you're halfway through, as the big book says. Okay, see you next time.